What makes you feel good? What floats your boat and makes your steps lighter? What puts a smile on your face without fail and make even your hump day blues disappear? Well, those are the kind of positive ideas we want to focus on because from this point and on, it's good vibes only. On Good Vibes Only, we invite some good people into the studio to talk about good things only. That is, whatever makes us feel happy, whether it's food, moods, hoods, or goods. And today's good person with the good vibes is renowned translator and novelist, Mr. Anton Hur. Hello and welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Could you start by saying hello to our listeners?
Hello, global listeners. It is I, Anton Hur.
Welcome and thank you. Now, we can't not ask this. The field of Korean literature just celebrated a historic event just last week, with writer Kang becoming the first Korean and first Asian woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. So what were your thoughts about this?
Well, my first thought was, I am so glad that Ko-eun did not win. And was not the first Korean to win the Nobel Prize in Literature because that would have gummed up the works quite a bit for reasons that you can find out for yourself when you search his name. Yeah, it was so great because some years when they announced the Nobel Prize, you're like, oh, did that person really? And then some years you're like, oh, I'm so glad that person won. This is a year where I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that it was Kang.
Oh.
So glad that this is our first Korean. I did not know it was the first Asian woman until they were talking about it. Yeah, it's just, I've been saying Kang should win the Nobel Prize since at least 2017. I found a tweet from 2017 where I was saying it,
Wow.
but even earlier than that. So yeah, this is such a great moment for Korean literature, and I'm so happy that it was Kang.
I saw on your social media that you posted to say congratulations to the author. But you have also won multiple awards yourself as a translator. Wow! But you've recently you've recently published your first novel this summer. So congratulations!
Thank you.
And we're going to take a quick song break right now. But when we come back, we'll talk about your book, Toward Eternity. All right. For now, let's listen to Gold by ITZY. Wow, we just saw the music video and it's pretty amazing. It's my first time listening to the song. I think it's a new song, maybe. Well, let's take a look at some comments. K-Poppers Indo says, hello, Anton. How are you?
Hi. Oh, I'm going to Indonesia in next week, actually. So, maybe I'll see you there.
Yeah. All right. And the next comment is from Taipei Wern. Hello, Anton. You have a unique last name.
I kind of do and I don't because so Ho is a very common last name in Korea, but Hur, the way that I spell it, there are actually two other writers, Angela Hur and June Hur. They're both novelists, and they both spell their Hoshi H-U-R as I do, and the three of us checked, and the three of us are not related in any way. Yeah, but we're all writers, so that's really funny.
So how do people normally? How would they normally spell Ho in English?
I've seen it
H-E-O?
Yeah, I've seen it H-E-O. I've seen H-U-H.
H-U-H.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, but when I asked Angela Hur, how did your father come up with H-U-R? Her father had the same reason as my father. They both knew the movie Ben-Hur, which was also a novel, and my dad was an English major, so they're like, oh, we'll spell it like this so that it's just easier for everyone involved. Wow. And to this day, I'm like, yes, it's like her as in like Ben-Hur, the chariot thing. And yeah, people understand me.
Well, it's funny that both dad had the
same idea. Yeah, did we have the same father? No. We checked.
Yeah, but I did think the same thing. I did think the surname was pretty interesting, the spelling. Because I normally saw it as H-E-O.
Yeah, that's like the new spelling. Yeah, I'm an older person. Yes.
Okay, the next comment is from Satomi-sang 60. Which country left the biggest impression on you?
Oh, that's Thailand.
Thailand.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know I should
love
be
Thailand.
diplomatic, but that's where I went to high school. I married a Thai person, and so yeah, Thailand is definitely, of all the countries that I've lived in, it's like the country that's left the biggest impression.
It must take a special place in your heart.
Oh yes,
Thailand.
love Thai
I
food, love Thai
oh
people.
my gosh, me too. I love Thai cuisine.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and the place and the fans are amazing too in Thailand.
Great literature too.
Great literature too. Right now, as I mentioned earlier, you are a world-renowned literary, I can't pronounce the word, literary translator, having won numerous awards and being nominated for even more, including the 2022 International Booker Prize and the 2023 National Book Award. Wow. And now you've also published your own book as a novelist. So can you please tell us about your first novel, Toward Eternity?
Sure. First of all, just to correct the record, I have not won numerous awards. I think I've won one award. I get nominated for a lot of things, but I'm kind of famous for not winning, like being the Susan Lucci of translation awards. And that's fine. I think that's iconic.
But still being a nominee.
Oh, I'm not complaining about it at all. I think it's more cool to be nominated a lot of times and never win than it is to just win once and then never be nominated for anything. I don't know. That's how I feel. Maybe it's just me doing 정신승리. Well, how do you call it in English? It's like mental gymnastics. Yeah, so yes, I'm a published novelist now. It is called Toward Eternity, published by Harper Via and Harper 360. Both are imprints of HarperCollins. It's basically it's about poetry, it's about cloning, and it's about AI. And how those three combine, you've got to read the book because it's a little improbable, like the way that I explain it. So there's a cancer therapy, and then it helps people cure cancer, but it also gives them immortality. And so this is a study of like what do we mean by immortality? Like what is it that lives forever, if not our bodies? Is it our souls? Is it our poetry? Is it our love for each other? And that's what I explore in the book.
So how did you come up with the idea?
In the shower.
In the shower. Wow.
So in the shower back then, you could not take your iPhone into the shower. In the shower back then, you could not take your cell phone into the shower because they were not waterproof. Now they kind of are. So in the shower, I had nothing to do, and I'm like, lathering my hair. And I'm like, it would be really fun if you could cure cancer by replacing every single cell in your body. I think initially the idea was that you can replace every single cell in your brain so that the mind uploading problem would be solved, like philosophically. And so I took that idea and I thought, well, you can also use it for cancer therapy, but what would happen if your entire body was replaced with this therapy? Then you would be an android, you would be able to live forever. And then so one thought led to the other, and then I wrote the entire book.
Wow, that's a lot going on in your shower.
Yes. Yes, boredom is very generative.
Yeah, boredom is
Yeah.
important because many people get their creative ideas
When they're bored.
when they're bored,
Exactly.
right? Oh, so did you? How long did it take for you to write this novel? It's a thick book, right?
No, it's like 290 pages. I don't think it's even 300 pages. It's actually quite thin, and reviewers keep saying like, oh, for a thin book, it's set across thousands of years. So everyone is always surprised about the length.
I see.
It took about 10 years off and on. I think when I sat down to really write it, to really draft it, it took about like 3-4 months. So in total, it probably did not take more than 6 months. But I wrote it off and on over 10 years.
Wow. And as you mentioned, it's a science fiction.
Yes.
So were you always interested in AI and future technology, or?
I think so, because when you're working as a translator, people are always threatening you with the prospect that your job is going to be replaced by AI. I mean, I've been hearing this.
yeah.
I've been hearing this for 3
All the
decades,
time,
and
right?
it hasn't happened. Like, there's no AI that's even near the level of commercial translation. So I'm not worried at all, frankly. But it is something that I studied because it is a fascinating technology. I studied machine learning and how it pertains to artificial intelligence. So but I studied that because I thought, oh, it would be it's kind of complicated, but like, so there is an internet company that is global. I'm not allowed to say brand names. That's why I'm being dodgy. And this company has created an AI that you can hook up with an API. So if you can create your own web app based on that, their AI, like essentially for free. And so I was like, oh, like, why don't I create some kind of web app that could take care of this, like, take advantage of this API. And then I just couldn't find an application for anything for AI. And that's like AI's problem right now. Like it doesn't have a killer app. Like it doesn't, like people keep saying ChatGPT, but it hasn't been able to quite replace writers and actual thinking yet. So
it's still not there yet.
Yeah, there's no killer app, and AI, I don't know how useful it is.
But do you think one day it will come and replace
I mean,
humans?
in thousands of years, anything can happen, but anytime soon, I kind of doubt it.
Because that's many translation major students' biggest concern. Because they say, many people say that translators would be the first ones to be replaced.
See, they've been telling us that for so long, but there are a lot of jobs in translation still. And
We still need the human touch.
Yeah. I mean, it's just not commensurate to human translation. It just isn't. And no amount of gaslighting is going to change my mind. Like, you cannot tell me that you're going to take your contract that you worked on to an AI, get it translated, and then have someone sign it. Like, the liability of that would be, like, who's going to take the liability for that? You know, are you going to sue Google if you sign a translated contract? Like, no. So
that's great news for translate.
Lawyers are going to save us. Yes.
Yeah, that's good news for translation major students, right?
I mean, if they want to study translation, you don't have to become a translator after you study translation. I studied law. I'm not a lawyer, so like, yeah, you don't have, like, if it's a field that fascinates you, like, study it. Like, that's the rule. It's not the rule that, oh, this is going to lead, like, I have to do, like, 꼭 전공을 살려야 된다. I have to, you know, do my major, do my job. That was my major. Like, that's not a thing. Like,
People
I mean, it is
don't
kind
really 살려 they don't really go for their majors.
They don't
Many
really.
people
No.
don't.
Learning is about, you know, the joy of knowledge and then learning how to learn. That's basically what learning is. And liberal arts means that your mind is being liberated from unlearning a lot of things that were indoctrinated into you so that you could become a more intelligent person and a more well-rounded person. It's not about picking up a skill that you can later use in a job that will immediately make you redundant as soon as the next technology comes along. Like, that's not a very efficient way to regard your education. That's just how I feel.
Right. And when you're translating, there's so many different genres and fields, right? You said you majored in law, so it could be translating for contracts and law related, or fictions. There's so many different genres. But which genre is most fun for you to translate?
I love all of them.
All of them?
Yeah, it's very, like, I'm in literary translation now, but even in literary translation, I do poetry, I do nonfiction, I do novels, I do, like, basically any kind of translation that you can think of when it comes to literary translation. And when I was coming up, like, you know, people would specialize. Poetry translators would only translate poetry. Fiction translators would only translate fiction.
And kind of head toward one direction.
Exactly, yeah. Or translate in one direction, like into Korean or into English, never both. I do both. So my belief is that, you know, translation is the real skill here. It's the thing that you can apply everywhere. It's the other things that don't really require that much specialized knowledge. Like, you can kind of learn the nomenclature very quickly, like 6 months at the most. I know people are like, oh, how can you dare say that? But I'm like, no, like, learning a language is much harder than learning, you know, some of your fields. So I'm sorry, but that's just the case. And I am living proof of it because I was a professional professional translator for like a decade before I became a professional literary translator.
Wow. All right, well, going back to your book, did you discuss your novel with any fellow writers whose works you've translated?
This is such a great question, and I had to, like, think about it, and I never really did. Because I just didn't like discussing my writing with anyone. Not because I'm very precious about it, but I just feel like it's the whole point of writing for me is that I am having, like, this intimate moment with my own mind. So why would I, like, when I'm editing a book, of course I should invite everyone. And then when I'm workshopping a book, of course I should, have as many people who are willing to read my work as possible. But when you're actually writing it, I don't know, there just wasn't much to discuss. And my writers also, like, they don't discuss with me, like, when they're working on something new. So, and because for the same reasons, I think, like, because the second, like, they start thinking about, oh, how is Anton going to translate this? Like, it's going to affect the quality of the prose. And I don't want that. I'm like, no, I will worry about the translation. You try to realize, like, the best vision, like try to get as close to your vision as possible. Like that's the only thing that you should care about. All the marketing
so you do
and
you,
PR.
I do me.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't have to do my job for me. I will do my job. Like I'm very good at doing my job, and all of the people at your publishing houses, like they're very good at doing their job. So you just do this, and that's what I always tell my authors, and they're the same way, I think. Yeah, with me.
I see. Well, I believe 정보라, the author of the novel 저주토끼, Cursed Bunny, which you translated into English, will be translating your novel Toward Eternity into Korean. So what's it like having your roles changed?
We've done this once before. I wrote a short story, and she translated it into Korean, and both versions are available on Asymptote. It's called Fictional Notes Toward an Essay in Translation. And you can search that on the internet. So it was really funny when that happened, and I didn't ask her oh, would you be interested in translating Toward Eternity? Like when she heard that I was working on this book and it was about to come out, she was very adamant that she be the one to translate it into Korean. I think it's like her revenge because I remember at the Booker Prize ceremony in 2022, it was just so chaotic. And I remember I write about this in my Korean book, but I turned to Bora Chung and I go like, oh, I'm so sorry. I think I ruined your life. And Bora's like, oh, it's okay. A person's life is not that easily ruined. Like, just, So I think this is her attempt to ruin my life. So it's gonna be really fun. I'm looking forward to like dragging her to panels for my book this time. Yeah, it'll be great.
I love your collaboration with her. And I also saw that you translated the 떡볶이 book by
백세희.
백세희 작가님. Did you get a chance to meet her?
I haven't met her yet. So I normally don't talk to my authors. But I did have we did exchange some very nice messages. She's very, very kind.
She's very sweet.
And
I know her.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I think she's also a little shy.
She is.
Yeah, so she doesn't, so I didn't want to hello, I'm your translator. I didn't want to, I wanted her to feel like she was being taken care of.
She's a very introverted person.
And I wanted to respect her space. But she sent me a very, very lovely message, and that totally made my day.
Yeah, I was very 반가워 to see that you translated her book.
Yeah. I think we're going to meet in person for the first time in Singapore because we are going to a writers' festival there next month. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Yeah.
And how was it translating that book?
Oh, it was very, very...
Did it take a long time or a short time?
It's not a long book.
Yeah.
I think the second book is a bit longer. I really, it was I just really wanted to make everything as clear as possible because you can, even though it is a collection of transcripts, it's not like 백세희 just wrote down what they were saying. There was a lot of writing and thinking and intention involved in the editing of it and in the presentation of it. And I wanted 백세희's just clarity and courage to come through because I feel like this is a very brave book to write. It's a very brave book to write. And I think that candidness of her willing to be vulnerable in public for the sake of letting people know that they're not alone in their feelings and in their concerns. I think I wanted to really, really respect that. Yeah. And I wanted readers to respect her, basically. Yeah, if that makes sense. So, and also translating the book was very therapeutic for me. Yeah, because she discusses a lot of strategies when it comes to, for example, harmful thoughts or being in kind of like a never-ending loop in negative thoughts and like spiraling is I think how I translated it. And so I think that was like really, really helpful for me too, because I think everyone kind of has those moments. And
Yeah. By the way, the book's title is I Want to Die, But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki. Such a powerful title, right?
I know, yeah. She was a genius for coming up with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for another song break, but I have many more questions. So I'll be right back with Anton after Hey Ya by IVE, as well as How Sweet by New Jeans.
Let's get it. Let's get it.
Jeans and their song How Sweet, and before that, IVE with Hey Ya. Very nice songs. Yeah. Right, let's take a look at some comments. K-Poppers Indo says, where do you get your inspirations from? And what was the most difficult experience you've had since you first became a writer?
Well, apparently my inspirations come from the shower.
The shower.
What was the most difficult experience? I feel like as a writer, I've actually not had that many experiences that are particularly difficult. It's really being a translator that's so hard.
Then what's the most difficult part about
Oh,
being a
I can't even
translator?
tell you because it is so many people are involved and it's okay. How do I say this? Like, people try to steal money from you. They do it to your face. And they're like, I'm not going to give you this thing that you are normally entitled to. And then I'd be like, what? And then they'd be like, well, we can always like choose another translator or whatever. And then so it got to a point where translators don't really have literary agents. Like we don't have managers. But I'm like, okay, I need a manager. And I had a literary agent for my writing, but she didn't handle my translation. And I asked her to handle my translation. And then she had to think about it because this is, you know, it's very rare that a translator should need an agent. And then when she did take on the work, she was like, I cannot believe you were dealing with this for years all by yourself. And yeah, so I'm so grateful to my agent. So yeah, so that period before I got an agent was like the hardest, but now everything is much easier. Yeah.
Because when it comes to translation, in Korean we would say 열정페이. We would have to face that problem sometimes too.
Yeah, me not anymore. Yeah.
It happened to me too. Yeah.
It's terrible.
But I wanted the experience, and it was such a famous and important book that I had to do it, like not thinking about money. But now that I look back at it, it was kind of not fair. Yeah,
Did it come out, the book?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, so you know what we're talking
there
about.
are only a few books, so it's gonna be one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have no regrets. So yeah, must be so many translation difficulties.
Yeah, I mean, you know all about it. Yeah.
Right. What was the next comment? Yes, the next comment. Taipei Wern says, you want to avoid listening to other people's opinions on your writing too. It will affect your creative juices from flowing.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I think when you're doing the first draft, that's very important. I think all subsequent drafts, however, you kind of really need to listen to everyone's opinion. And for example, I mean, obviously, not like, you know, you exercise your judgment, obviously. But what a lot of my book was rewritten with the help of my agent before we sent it out to publishers. And then once we had a publisher, my editor and I basically discussed this a lot, where she took out entire chapters and I wrote entirely new chapters and put them into the book. And those chapters are now my favorite chapters in my novel. So, yeah, so I'm always thanking my editor at Harper via Tara Parsons for that, because Tara basically was like, I'm not quite sure. She was always very diplomatic. She's like, I'm not quite sure if this part is as good as this part. And then I'd be like, okay, let's take it out. And then I'll just rewrite the part. And then, yeah, so there was a lot of that. And I'm just so grateful for their input because A, they were right, and B, you know, these are very busy people, book editors and agents. Like, they're very busy people. If they're making this much effort to read your work and then give you input, then it's a good idea to listen to it.
Right, because I'm sure they're handling a lot of books at
Yeah,
at
exactly.
once, right?
Exactly.
They have a lot.
Yeah, and everyone wants you to succeed,
Right.
It's not like they're trying to sabotage me. So I listen to them a lot. Yeah, a lot.
And Wahaha says, what books did you enjoy when you were a teenager?
So, God, so many of those books ended up somehow in some form in Toward Eternity. For example, I loved Emily Dickinson. Since I was a teenager, I still love her. She's a poet. All of her poetry. There's this novel called Possession by A.S. Byatt. It is a lot of those ideas that are in Possession are in Toward Eternity. I named myself after A.S. Byatt. So A.S. Byatt stands for Antonia Susan Byatt. So I got Anton from Antonia.
Oh,
Yeah. She recently passed away. But not before I told her that I named myself after her. And she was just very, very pleased. And that was very moving for me.
So you've always been a book lover.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Liz says, when you read for pleasure, do you prefer to read in Korean or in English?
I have no distinction at this point, really. I think,
Both.
yeah, yeah. The funny thing about this is that sometimes I will, like, I used to not do this, but now I might read, like, an English book in Korean translation because I'm like, I think when I was in grad school, I would read literary theory I would tend to read it in English translation, but then like Agamben, for example, Giorgio Agamben has a very good Korean translator. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but I just remember like reading his Korean translations of Agamben and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to read these from now on. I'm not going to read the English translation. And he's writing in Italian, so there's no reason why I should pick one language over the other. But the translator was so good that I would choose his translators. Yeah, every time. I think Korean translation, we have such great Japanese translators. I think, and we have so many great Japanese Korean translators, like translating into Korean. So I read, I'm sorry to my Japanese English colleagues, but I tend to read Japanese literature in Korean. So sometimes it's like a language bias, like language pairing bias, where I'm like, oh no, I'm going to read this in Korean. French translations I tend to read in Korean because our translators are just really good.
Yeah.
They're all very good, French English translators, but I'm in Korea, so and I can read Korean, and they're also very good. So I am very happy to read other people's literatures in Korean, and also Korean translators translate a lot. They're really excellent. They're like up here. They're like at a global level. Like we would not have won the Nobel Prize if we did not have this constant supply of extremely competent, highly educated translators, always producing, translated literature, so that authors like Han Gang and Kyung-suk Shin and all of the authors that we love would grow up reading them. And it's because we have this tradition.
And we were talking about it when the music was playing, that you are translating so many books right now too. So yes.
Yes, so many.
So many books. I was shocked to hear the number, like almost 10.
Yeah, almost 10. I think
Wow.
it may be over 10.
Do you translate very quickly? Like your speed?
People say that. I feel like I am very slow and lazy, but I must translate fast. This year I'm publishing
I'm
7
assuming.
books.
Oh my!
7
Wait,
books. This
year.
calendar year in 2024. There's 6 translations, 1 my own novel, Toward Eternity.
Wow!
Yeah, so I must work
You must
at a certain
be
pace. Yeah.
working
yeah.
at a fast pace.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Because
just feel so lazy.
translating one book took me like 6 months to translate one long book. So
I mean-
it's amazing how you can handle all of that.
I mean, some of those books are authors that I've translated before, and it's easier if it's a voice that you're used to, and you already know what this author is supposed to sound like in English. So there's less of a hill to climb with those works. Like, Tteokbokki 2, that's a sequel to Tteokbokki 1. So because I've done this, it was easier to translate Tteokbokki 2.
Right. All right, and Anton and I will be back after one more song break. Let's listen to Nerd Connection and their song 사랑을 닮은 이유로, You, as well as Love Wins All by IU. with Love Wins All. And before that, we heard 사랑을 닮은 이유로 You by Nerd Connection. So Anton, I mean, you must be so busy, a packed schedule with translating, writing, and traveling for your book tours, as well as serving as a judge for literary awards. So do you have any time, do you have time for anything else? What do you do in your free time?
I wish I had a really good answer to this. Like, I don't know. You know, you read those stories about like, oh, these artists, and then in order to paint a painting, they have to go out and murder someone. And then, like, I mean, it's good that I'm not like that. I'm not confessing to anything on camera right now. But yeah, I think it's really, really important to have physical hobbies, especially at my age, because when you sit down and when you're like, you know, translating all day. So you know, my husband and I, like, we bought bikes and then we bike around, try to bike as much as we can. But that's about it. Like, but otherwise, like, I'm just like everyone else. I binge watch things on TV. I try not to think about literature before bed. I spend way too much time on social media. Yeah, that's basically my sad life outside of work. Yes.
Oh, well, you still have cycling.
Yes.
Cycling, right?
Yeah,
Bicycle.
yeah. We spend a lot of time in Songdo, so you know it's a flat island that's in a grid, so really excellent for cycling. Yeah.
Well, that's a great workout. Because when you're translating, and most of the works that you're doing must require a lot of sitting down.
Yes. Yes.
So sometimes you do something active, like you said, physical
Yeah.
activity.
And I know so many translators who have back problems, who have carpal tunnel
Neck
syndrome.
problems,
Yes.
eye problems,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I was at an event. I was at Edinburgh Book Fest with Emily Wilson, who translated the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. And I remember in the green room, she just entered the green room with like sort of robotically like this. And I was like, Emily, what happened? And she's like, oh, it's just my back again. And I'm like, oh no. So yeah, it's and you know, she's not the only person that I know who has back problems. So yeah, it's definitely something that translators need to look out for.
Right. So you need to find the right workout for you. All right, it's already time to say goodbye. So thank you so much for coming and for sharing your good vibes with us today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please come back again.
Thank you. I was just so much fun. I would love to come back again, and thank you so much.
Thank you, and congratulations on your recent novel.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to say goodbye to Anton with Imujin and his song Episode.
나는 말야 버릇이 하나